I signed the papers for a penthouse in the city. No one knew. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my door with my sister and a van full of boxes, smiling, saying she'd be living with me now. I made coffee, sat everyone down, and opened the folder on the table. If you saw your own family whispering about you behind your back, would you call them out or let it slide? I still wonder if silence was the right choice. My name is Dana. I'm 34, and I work as a project manager for a mid-sized software company in Boston. I've lived here most of my adult life, bouncing between rented apartments in neighborhoods that never felt quite like home. My family is close by, my parents in the suburbs, my younger sister, Emily, a few neighborhoods over. But I've always felt like the one who left first, the one who never quite came back. I see them most weekends for dinner or coffee. It's routine. Predictable. Comfortable, if a little suffocating sometimes. A month ago, I closed on a penthouse apartment downtown. It's something I've wanted since my 20s, but I never said that out loud. I kept it to myself. The promotion at work finally bumped my salary enough to make it possible. I spent nights looking at listings, running numbers, emailing mortgage brokers. I didn't tell my family. Not because I don't trust them, but because I wanted this to be mine. The first thing I'd done, built, and paid for that was just for me. Looking back, I should have seen the signs that something was coming. My mother started dropping hints about putting down roots whenever we spoke. She'd ask if I planned to keep throwing money at rent or if I was ready to join the real world. My sister, Emily, would joke about needing a guest room in my future castle, always in that half-serious tone she uses when she wants something but doesn't want to look greedy. When I brushed it off, she'd say she was kidding. I thought it was harmless. Most days, I worked late, coming home to a quiet apartment. I liked it that way. I liked the control, the privacy. I had my routines, morning runs, meal prepping, reading before bed. I never felt lonely, just quiet. Maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. The way people look at you when they want something. The way a joke can become a plan while you're not paying attention. I opened the door still in my work clothes, phone against my ear, voice stuck in that clipped tone you use with clients. My mother's face appeared first, pressed close, bright and expectant. Behind her, my father balanced a box labeled books, and Megan trailed in, arms wrapped around a big canvas duffel. I didn't even have time to say hello before they swept past me, all talking at once. Surprise, Megan's here. She needs a change. She's moving in, isn't it wonderful? She'll get back on her feet. My father nudged the door shut with his foot. I stood in the hallway, my bag still on my arm, my phone in my hand, and stared at the three of them as they headed in. Megan went straight for the guest rooms, calling out, "Which one is bigger?" Without waiting, she opened the door to the one facing the park and dropped her duffel on the bed. I heard the springs creak. My mother set a grocery bag on the kitchen counter and started unloading eggs, milk, an apple pie, and a carton of oat milk she knew I hated. "Look at this view," she said, peering out the window. "You're so lucky." My father put the box down by the kitchen table and handed me a coffee cup with a paper sleeve. He smiled like this was normal. I took it because I didn't know what else to do. I still had my house keys in my coat pocket, warm from my walk home. My mother's voice floated over the marble countertop, Megan asking if there were extra towels, my father already opening the fridge. "We brought food," my mother said, like it was a gift. "You need to eat better." Megan appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair up, phone out, already texting. "I'll need space for my stuff," she said. "I'll get the closet sorted tonight." "You're okay with this, right?" my father said, voice low, pointed. "She needs a fresh start." I nodded. I couldn't find my words. I watched as Megan opened cabinet doors, found the coffee mugs, took one out, and set it next to the machine. She looked around, barely glancing at me, like she was inspecting a hotel suite. My mother slid open a drawer and stacked groceries in neat rows. My father sipped his coffee and looked at the city lights outside. "You're so generous," my mother said, patting my arm as she passed me on her way to the guest bath. "I'm glad she has you." Megan was already staking out shelves in the bathroom, her makeup bag on the counter, toothbrush in the cup. I stood in the kitchen doorway, letting the coffee warm my hands, not tasting anything. I tried to think of what to say. "Welcome, stay as long as you need," my mother hummed while she put things away. Megan was talking to someone on her phone, laughing. My father sat down at the table and started opening mail I'd left there, sorting it into piles. The apartment smelled like my mother's perfume and Megan's shampoo, and the cardboard from the moving boxes. I heard the elevator doors close down the hall, the faint hum of city noise below. I still hadn't taken off my shoes. "We'll come by tomorrow with the rest of her things," my father said, not asking. "You'll love having her around again." Megan caught my eye and smiled, her old smile from when we were kids, as if this was just a sleepover. I nodded again, feeling the keys in my pocket, the last bit of warmth from the day. No one looked at me long enough to see I hadn't agreed. They acted like it was already decided, like the apartment was always meant for all of us. My phone buzzed, a reminder for a meeting I was now late for. I put it face down on the counter. No one asked where I'd been or what I was doing. Megan started humming, the same song she used to sing when she wanted something. My mother asked if I had any more towels for the guest bath. My father unfolded the apartment's Wi-Fi password from a slip of paper. I said nothing, and the city lights outside my window flickered on, one by one. I sat across from them on the couch, the mug warm in my hand. Mom had taken her usual spot, perched on the edge of the armchair, a magazine in her lap she wasn't reading. Dad was next to her, feet planted wide, arms crossed. Megan had flopped on the far side of the sofa, already scrolling through her phone. I cleared my throat. I never said anyone could move in with me. Mom didn't even look up. Family helps family, Dana. She smoothed a wrinkle out of her skirt, the way she always did when she was done with a topic. Megan didn't look up either. "You have so much space. It'd be selfish not to share." She smiled at her screen, not at me. I kept my voice steady. "I work from home. I need the office to myself. My schedule is." Dad cut in. "Let her stay for a few months. You'll barely notice her." He grunted, picking at a spot on his jeans. I looked at Megan. She kicked her shoes off, toes digging into the rug. I waited for her to say thank you or even ask, but she just locked her phone and looked over at Mom. Mom finally sighed and put down the magazine. "You know how hard things are for her right now. She needs a place to get back on her feet." She looked at me like I was being unreasonable. I tried to explain again that I'd set up the spare room as my office. No one asked me. No one called. I needed notice. I needed my own space. I started talking, but Mom raised her hand. "She's your sister. Just until she finds something better." She looked tired, like I was making more work for her. Megan stretched, not bothering to hide her yawn. "I can help around the house," she said, but I knew that tone. She didn't mean it. Dad leaned back. "Your mother's right. It's not forever." He wouldn't look at me. I watched Mom gather her purse, already standing. Megan was texting again. Dad pushed himself up and started walking toward the door. The conversation was over. I hadn't actually said yes, but the decision had been made. I stood there, holding my coffee, and listened to the sound of their shoes in the hall. Megan didn't say goodbye. Mom called out, "Thanks, honey," as she closed the door behind her. The house felt smaller with just me in it. I stared at the empty hallway, the coat rack, the shoes lined up just so. I thought about moving them, just to do something. Instead, I sat back down and finished my coffee in silence. There was a piece of Megan's gum stuck under the coffee table. I hadn't noticed before. I scraped at it with my thumbnail, then stopped. It wasn't about the gum. It was about no one hearing me. I cleaned up, stacked the mugs in the sink, and wiped down the counter. Later, I found Megan's jacket hanging on the back of a chair, her perfume lingering in the air. She'd already claimed her place. I wondered if she knew I'd never agreed. I wondered if anyone did. Night settled in. I walked through the rooms, checking the window locks, resetting the thermostat, the old routines. The spare room door was open. I closed it gently and felt the click echo down the hall. I sat in the quiet and scrolled through my work calendar, trying to focus. I could already hear Megan's music, her late-night calls, her shoes on the wood floor. I could see her things spreading out, little piles in the bathroom, her bags by the front door. I didn't want to fight, so I said nothing. In the morning, I'd wake up and find her suitcase in the hall. I knew that already. The decision was made. My coffee tasted flat. The house suddenly didn't feel like mine. The kitchen was empty when I came in. The only sound was the dishwasher humming on its last cycle. Megan's laptop was open next to the fruit bowl, screen glowing. I didn't mean to look at it. I just went for a glass of water and caught the bold subject line right in the middle of the screen. "Penthouse transfer, need update." I stopped, water running in the tap, and let it run a second too long. She always left her email logged in. I never cared before. But the subject line was impossible to ignore. I set the glass down. The email was from my parents' lawyer, sent that afternoon. He thanked Megan for forwarding the necessary documents and said he'd be in touch once the bank wiring and title paperwork were finalized. He wrote, "Once we confirm the transfer, Megan's name will appear as co-owner. Please advise if you'd like a hard copy of the new deed sent to your address." I scrolled down. My mother had replied, copying Megan, "Thank you, George. We'd appreciate a hard copy. This should be a smooth process since our daughter is agreeable." Then Megan's reply, "Thanks, Janet. I'll follow up with the bank in the morning." Excited to make this official. My name wasn't in the thread. No one had spoken to me. The lawyer called it our daughter's penthouse. The emails talked about me like I was a bystander or a formality. I sat down at the counter stool. The tap was still running. I turned it off. The email chain went back 3 weeks. Requests for recent appraisals, scanned copies of the building's bylaws, and Megan's driver's license. One message from my dad said, "We're glad Megan is stepping up for the family. This will be good for everyone." I closed the laptop. I just stared at the counter for a long minute. The house felt different, smaller, not mine. The dishwasher beeped. Megan's shoes were by the front door. I heard her in the hallway, talking to someone on her phone, laughing about a client who'd forgotten his appointment. I didn't move. She came in, saw me sitting there, and smiled. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine. Just tired," I said. She poured herself a glass of wine. Didn't look at the laptop, just picked it up and carried it to the couch. I watched her settle in, feet tucked under a blanket, scrolling through her phone. She didn't say anything about the emails. I didn't either. The way she acted, like this was normal, like it was hers already, made something settle in my chest that I hadn't felt before. Not anger. Not yet. Just something quiet, like a door closing. I went upstairs, left her in the living room. In the bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. I thought about the way Megan talked to my mother in the emails. Excited to make this official. The way my parents wrote about me, as if this was the plan all along. I washed my face and dried it on the towel, then sat on the edge of the tub, listening to the pipes. Their voices carried through the floor. Megan on the phone again, my mother's laugh in my head from the email chain. Later, in bed, I lay awake and tried to remember the last time I'd felt like this apartment was my own. There was just the sound of Megan typing in the other room, and the faint noise of the city outside. I didn't sleep much. When I did, I woke up to the same thought. They'd already started the transfer. They didn't need my permission. In the morning, Megan was gone before I woke up. She left a note. Early meeting, back for dinner. I made coffee and stood by the window. I saw the laptop closed with a yellow sticky note on the cover. Don't forget to sign the bank form. My name in her handwriting. I didn't touch it. I just looked at the note, then at the city below, and realized, for the first time, that they all expected me to go along with this. That was the plan. That was what they thought I would do. I left before sunrise. I didn't want to see anyone. Didn't want to risk bumping into my sister in the hallway or hearing my phone buzz again. The city was empty, almost clean, the kind of morning where you hear every sound echo off the buildings. I kept walking. No plan, just moving. The cold helped. I had the urge to do something with my hands, so I ducked into one of those chain drugstores that open early. I bought a cheap line notebook and a pack of pens. I found a bench outside a bakery that wasn't open. I sat and started writing. Not feelings, just facts. All the small things I'd let slide. The helping with paperwork, comments my sister made when she came over, asking to see my lease, then the mortgage documents. My mother always saying how lucky I was to have my name on everything, and how maybe I could make it easier for the family if anything ever happened. My brother-in-law last Christmas mentioning how splitting bills is just good sense, keeps things fair. I wrote it all down. I wrote down every time someone asked for a copy of a bill or suggested we sign things together. It looked different on paper. Messier, but also clearer. At 7:30, I called my realtor. He answered on the second ring. I tried to keep my voice steady. I told him I had a strange question. Had anyone from my family called about the deed to my apartment? Anyone asking about documents or requesting copies? He paused. I could hear him shuffling papers. No, he said, no one had called. No one had emailed. The only person on the deed was still me. I pressed a little. Was there any way someone could have requested changes or information without my knowing? He sounded puzzled. No, he said again, all communications go through you. He asked if something was wrong. I said no, just a misunderstanding. I hung up and stared at my phone. I expected to feel relief, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt another kind of unease, like I'd missed something obvious, something I should have questioned months ago. I flipped back through my notes, looking for patterns. There were so many little things. My sister volunteering to help with taxes, offering to organize my files, always asking for my online banking login, just in case. Jokes about family trust at dinner, my mother laughing, my brother-in-law agreeing. I never thought twice. It all felt normal because it was gradual. A text buzzed while I was writing. My sister. Can we talk? I ignored it. The bakery opened at 8. I bought a coffee and sat near the window, notebook open. I called the utilities company and asked if anyone had tried to change the billing address. The woman on the phone checked. No, nothing recent. All bills were still in my name. I thanked her, hung up, and wrote that down too. I kept thinking about that night, how my sister and mother insisted we were all in this together. How they made it sound like I was selfish for wanting things clear. I wrote down every phrase I could remember. "We're your family. Don't you trust us? It's just paperwork." I tried to remember the exact tone, the pauses, the way my mother's voice went quiet when I said no. By noon, the city was alive. I was still sitting with my notebook, pages filling up. I felt exposed, but also more awake than I had in weeks. I started a new page and wrote one question. Why now? Why push so hard, and why me? I watched people walk past, some with kids, some alone. Normal mornings. I wondered how many of them had ever needed to write down what their family said, just to make sense of it. I looked at my phone again. Another message from my sister. "Please answer." I slid it back into my bag and closed the notebook. It was the first time in a long while I realized I was afraid, not just angry. I stood up stretched and decided I'd keep writing. The facts were the only things that felt solid. Megan left for her interview around 1. She took her usual canvas bag, the one with the hardware company logo, and called out that she'd be back before dinner. I waited a few minutes after the front door closed. I listened for the elevator's hum, then the silence that meant she was gone. The apartment was still. Her room always smelled faintly of her shampoo and something floral. She never made her bed. There were clothes draped over the chair and her laptop open on the desk, but I ignored it. I went for the dresser, then the nightstand. The top drawer stuck on something, and I pulled harder. That's where I saw the folder, a cheap blue one with stickers from college. I opened it on her bed. The first thing I saw was a printout, thick with highlighted lines. It was an email chain. The headers were familiar. My mother's name, my father, S, and Megan, S. The subject was Ray, Dana's lease. I read the top one. "My mother. If we word it as a safety concern, Dana can't object." "She won't read the fine print," Megan replied. "Should I act surprised? I can get her to sign." There were notes in the margins, my father's handwriting, adding, "Don't mention our contribution to Dana." No paper trail. I flipped through the rest. There were 2 more email chains about strategies. My mother had sent Megan a list of talking points, ways to convince me that this was for my own good, that I'd be less lonely with her around, that the building was too expensive for one person. Megan's replies were full of yesies, reassurances. "She trusts me, it'll be fine." At the end was a draft of something called a roommate agreement. The title was in bold. The body was full of generic legal language, but my name was there, typed in the signature line, a digital scan of a signature that looked nothing like mine. I ran my finger over the paper. Megan had written Dana L. Jones in blue ink, trying to mimic my handwriting, but the loops were wrong, the last name shaky. It was dated last week. I sat down on her bed. The next page was a receipt from our family's bank. The logo was unmistakable. The memo line read, "First month Dana's Penthouse." I stared at it for a long time. The transfer ID was circled in pink highlighter. Underneath, Megan had scribbled the date of her interview, today. I took out my phone and started taking photos, one by one. I didn't rush. I made sure every corner was visible, every date, every signature. I even took a shot of the folder, the stickers, the pile as I found it. I put everything back in order, closed the drawer, and smoothed her bedspread. My hands shook as I left the room, but the rest of me felt cold. I went to the kitchen and turned on the tap, just to hear the water run. I looked at my phone and scrolled through the photos. Each one made my chest feel tighter. It was all there, proof that they had planned this together, that Megan had lied, that my parents had paid her to push herself into my life and call it family. I wiped the counter with a towel that didn't need cleaning. Outside, the street noise was faint. I kept glancing at the hallway, half expecting her to come back early. The apartment felt smaller than it ever had before. It wasn't just the evidence. It was the certainty. There was no misunderstanding left. Dee made sure of that. When I heard the elevator in the hallway, I slid my phone into my pocket and rinsed the glass. I waited by the sink, trying to make my face neutral. The photos were on my phone. The folder was back in her drawer. I knew everything I needed to know. Megan came home late, almost midnight. I heard the key fumble, a soft curse, then her shoes sliding off on the mat. I was at the kitchen table with my laptop open, but I wasn't typing. When she saw me, she froze, one hand still on the entryway wall. "You're up." Her voice was flat, eyes darting to the screen, then to my face. "Yeah. We need to talk." She let out a sigh, like I was being dramatic. "About what?" I saw the smallest flicker of nerves before she crossed her arms. I leaned back. "The agreement you sent. The email from Mom. The money transfer." "I know." She tried to shrug it off. "That's just for fun. It's not real paperwork, I swear." Mom was being weird about it. I didn't answer, just watched her. She kept shifting her weight, and I could see the tension in her jaw. I saw the transfer receipt, Megan. The money's already gone. It wasn't just talk. She rolled her eyes, but her voice cracked a little. "Mom said it was just for rent, like, just a formality. You'd agree if you cared about me having stability." I stayed quiet, waiting. My hands were cold, but I kept them still on the table. She tried again, softer this time. "I thought we were family. I thought you'd want to help me out. Mom said you'd be fine about it." "That's not what happened," I said. "You didn't ask. You just did it. You made it look like my idea." Her face twisted, defensive, almost angry. "What's the big deal? It's just an agreement. You always overreact." I stood up. The chair scraped. "It's not just an agreement. It's my name. My house. You didn't even talk to me." She threw her bag on the counter, hard. "If you cared about me, you'd understand. I'm your sister. Why are you making this so hard?" I didn't answer. She didn't wait for one. She stomped past me, slammed her bedroom door. I heard her lock it. I stood in the kitchen for a while. The only sound was the fridge humming and the faint thump of her music coming on behind the door. My hands were shaking now, so I pressed them flat on the counter. It just sat heavy in my chest. I took my laptop and moved to the living room. I typed out a search: co-ownership agreement signed under false pretenses, then family fraud property law, then tenants' right siblings. Every result was a mix of people like me, quiet, blindsided, looking for a way to claw back ground. I bookmarked a few forums. Read the threads. Most of the advice was blunt. Don't wait. Document everything. Don't trust a handshake, even from family. I opened a new document and started a timeline. Dates, amounts, emails, screenshots. I realized I'd never done this before, never needed to keep evidence against my own sister. I wrote down what she'd said tonight. I didn't embellish it. Just the words. It hit me that she never apologized. Not once. It was all about what I owed her, what she deserved. Like it was obvious. Like I was the problem. I kept working until my eyes burned. Outside, the street was quiet and the apartment felt hollow. Every so often I'd hear her laugh through the wall, talking to someone on the phone, as if nothing was wrong. I finished the timeline and saved it twice, once to the cloud, once to a USB drive. I thought about the last time we'd done something together, gone to a movie, shared dinner, even just watched TV. I couldn't remember. It felt like someone else's memory. I read over the document. My hands were steady now. I locked my laptop, turned off the light, and went to bed. The anger was still there, but it was sharper, cleaner. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to the quiet, hearing every sound from Megan's room. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't feel tired. I knew what I had to do next. My mother came home alone that night. I heard the elevator doors open, the sound echoing down the hall. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through emails, but I wasn't reading anything. She didn't call out. She set her purse on the counter neatly, the way she always did. Then she walked over and sat down across from me. I waited. She placed a thick envelope on the table between us and pushed it toward me. "You should read this," she said. Her voice was low, almost bored. I picked it up. My name was typed on the front in block letters. Inside, there was a stapled pack of paper, 2 pages, both notarized with the blue stamp at the bottom. One was a letter from Megan, the other looked like an agreement. My eyes went straight to the signature lines. Megan S. was there, big and messy, and then my name, in handwriting that looked close to mine but not quite right. I turned the page over and back, looking for a mistake. I kept my hands steady. "What is this?" I asked. "It's a transfer agreement," she said. "Megan's agreed to take over half the penthouse. She gets her share, you get yours. It's fair." She paused, looking at me. "I know this is hard for you, but it's easier if you just let this happen." I put the papers back in the envelope. My mother's eyes didn't move from my face. I didn't react. I wanted to say something, but I waited. The silence stretched. She didn't fidget. She just watched me, her hands folded on the table. She looked tired but not guilty. "You forged my name," I said. I kept my voice even. She didn't deny it. "We both know you weren't going to sign," she said. "Sometimes you have to move on. Megan needs help. You have plenty. There's no reason to fight." I stared at her, searching for anger or shame. There was nothing. Only annoyance at my resistance, maybe. She picked up her purse again, as if the conversation was already over. "Is Dad involved?" I asked, before she could stand. "He supports this," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "He wants what's best for everyone." I let out a short breath. I could see the plan. Megan gets her name on the deed, the penthouse is suddenly hers as much as mine, and my parents have set it up to look like I agreed. Clean, simple with my forged consent. "What if I say no?" I asked. She shrugged. "If you make this difficult, it'll just get messier. We don't want to fight with you. But if you force us, it might go to court." She said it quietly, almost gently, as if she was offering me a kindness. I sat back. My mother stood and smoothed her skirt. "You should think about this," she said. "It's not worth dragging everyone through a fight. You always make things harder than they have to be." She left the envelope on the table and walked out of the kitchen. I heard her door close down the hall. I waited a minute, then pulled the papers out again. I ran my finger over the fake signature. I took a photo of each page with my phone, careful to get the stamps and the dates. The apartment felt different. I couldn't hear the city outside anymore. I sat still for a long time, just looking at the envelope. I realized they hadn't just pushed me aside. They were ready to erase me if it made their lives easier. My mother had come home, slid the plan across the table, and told me to accept it. She expected me to fold. I put the envelope in my desk drawer and locked it. That was the moment when it stopped being about Megan, or money, or even the penthouse. I knew I would not let them get away with this. I didn't sleep. I turned on the desk lamp and sat at my old laptop, careful not to make noise. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and, sometimes, the pipes in the wall. I laid out every file I'd collected: leases, contracts, bank statements, emails. It was all there, in physical copies and photos on my phone. I scanned each one, naming the files with dates and short, clear words, saving them to a folder called Evidence. Then I dragged the folder onto a flash drive I'd kept in my sock drawer for years. I uploaded everything to a new email account I set up, one that used a name Megan wouldn't recognize. I kept thinking about what would happen if she woke up and saw the light under my door. What she'd say if she caught me with the bills in my hands. I worked faster. I took pictures of the rent receipts, the utility statements in my name, and the forged signature on the lease renewal. When I had everything, I checked it twice. My hands shook once when I saw the totals, how much I'd paid out, how little was left in my account. I opened a new email to my lawyer, Rachel, who'd helped me once before when I had a landlord dispute. I wrote, "Hi Rachel, urgent. I believe my sister Megan has committed fraud using my financial documents. She forged my signature to renew the lease without my consent, has not paid rent, and is using my name and credit to cover her own expenses. All evidence attached. Please advise on next steps, including eviction process if possible. I am afraid of retaliation and need to know my legal options immediately." I attached the whole folder, checked everything 3 times, and hit send. It was almost morning by then. I sat back and looked at the clock, 5:17 a.m. I didn't hear anything from Megan's room, no sounds of her getting up to use the bathroom or check her phone. I went into the kitchen and made coffee, moving quietly. I didn't want to see anyone. I put the milk back in the fridge, wiped down the counter, and took my coffee back to my room. My parents' flight wasn't until the afternoon. I heard them moving around, talking in low voices. I stayed in my room, listening. Megan's door opened, then closed. She was up, probably heading for the shower. I locked my door from the inside, sat on my bed, and watched the sun come up through the blinds. I didn't say anything to them. My dad knocked once, asking if I wanted breakfast. I said no, I had work. He didn't press. My mom hovered outside the door, then gave up. I checked my phone, waiting for a reply from Rachel. I read and reread my own email, making sure I'd attached everything. I checked that the flash drive was still in my pocket. When Megan passed my door, she paused. I heard her hesitate, then keep walking. I stared at the lock, willing her not to try it. I heard the shower turn on and off. The apartment smelled like coffee and steam, and faintly, her expensive shampoo. I didn't go out. I kept quiet, moving with purpose. I answered work emails, kept my headphones on during calls, and didn't open the door unless I was sure everyone else was gone. I texted Rachel a second time around 9 a.m., just to say I was available anytime for a call. She replied within the hour. Received. Reviewing. We'll call it noon. When I finally heard the front door close behind my parents, I let myself breathe. Megan was still in her room. I packed a small bag with what I needed, locked my door again, and waited for noon. I set my phone on the breakfast table and tapped the speaker icon. My lawyer's voice came through, calm and direct. Megan barely looked up from her coffee, but her fingers drummed on the mug. My father sat stiff, not touching his food. My mother's eyes flicked between the 3 of us. I said, "I have evidence of fraud and forgery. If you don't leave by Friday, I'll file charges." The words sat there for a second, like dropped silverware. Megan's mouth twisted. She slammed her mug down, coffee sloshing. "You're bluffing. You always were. You think you're smarter than everyone, but you're just bitter." My mother's voice came fast, soft. "Please, let's not do this. We're family. We can talk." My father stared at me, face blotchy. "Why are you doing this to us? What did we ever do that you'd want to ruin us? My lawyer spoke. Her voice was even, no emotion. I'd like to remind everyone that criminal misrepresentation carries serious penalties. We have the original will, 2 sets of forged signatures, and correspondence from Megan's email account that implicates multiple parties. Megan's face went pale, then red. She pushed her chair back, the legs scraping. You went through my files. That's illegal. You can't. My lawyer interrupted. Your sister has every legal right to review estate documents as a named beneficiary. The chain of evidence is intact. The room got quiet. I watched my father's hand shake as he set his fork down. My mother started to say my name, but stopped. Megan stood up and pressed her palms on the table. If you think you're going to get away with this, you're wrong. You're just jealous. You always have been. Dad, say something. He didn't answer. He just stared at the table, breathing hard. My lawyer spoke again, softer this time. The offer stands until Friday at noon. After that, we proceed with criminal charges. Megan stormed out. I heard the back door slam. My mother wiped at her eyes, then folded her napkin. She said nothing. My father finally looked at me, his voice small. You're going to destroy this family over money. I said, you destroyed it when you lied. No one replied. My lawyer's voice was still on the line, but she waited. My mother stood and started gathering plates. She moved slowly, her shoulders hunched. My father stayed seated. I watched him, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I told my lawyer, thank you, I'll call you if there's any trouble. She said, I'll be on standby. Let me know if Megan contacts you directly. I ended the call. The kitchen was quiet, except for the sound of running water as my mother rinsed plates. Megan was gone. My father stared out the window. I waited until the silence stretched too long, then stood up. I said, you have 4 days. No one stopped me as I left the room. I heard my mother murmuring to herself, just under her breath. My father stayed silent. As I went upstairs, I could feel the anger and fear behind me, pressing against the walls. No shouting, no throwing things. Just a slow collapse, like the air leaving a room. For the first time, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt alone, but not powerless. The moving truck arrived earlier than they expected. I watched it pull up from the kitchen window, coffee in hand. Megan and my parents came out the front door, arms full of boxes. My mother's hair was pulled back tight, the way she did it for funerals. Megan's face was red, jaw clenched. My father carried a box of plates. He kept his eyes on the ground. The neighbors started gathering on the sidewalk. Mrs. Chen from next door stood with her arms crossed, whispering with her husband. The Johnson kids rode their bikes in slow circles, glancing at the pile of suitcases on the grass. Megan dropped a box on the porch and it split open, books spilling out. She kicked it hard, then turned to me where I stood in the doorway. Her voice was sharp, throat tight. You're heartless, she said. You're actually making us leave, after everything. I didn't answer. I stepped back inside and closed the door half. She shouted something else, but I didn't catch it. I heard the sound of glass breaking. Later, I saw the blue vase shattered in the entryway. That was the one my grandmother left me. Mom came in quietly behind her, carrying 2 bags. She put them down by the stairs and looked at me. We're family, Anna, she said. We're still your family. She waited, but I didn't move. She started crying, not loud, just her shoulders shaking. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and went to get the next box. My phone buzzed on the counter. A call from Aunt Linda. I let it go to voicemail. Then Uncle Ray. Then my cousin Tara. I put the phone in a drawer. The building manager, Mr. Foster knocked around noon. He looked uncomfortable, holding a printed email. "I got this from your lawyer," he said. He handed it to me. It was the warning about unauthorized tenants. He glanced over my shoulder at the chaos inside. "I just need to make sure everything's handled by the end of the day," he said. "It will be," I said. "Thank you." He nodded and left. Megan must have heard. She came stomping down the hallway with a pile of clothes. "You think you're so much better than us," she hissed. "I hope you choke on your money." She threw the clothes at my feet. I stepped aside, let them fall. Dad shuffled past Megan, carrying a bag of tools. He paused in the doorway, looked at me like he wanted to say something. He opened his mouth, closed it. He went outside. The living room emptied out box by box. I listened to the scrape of furniture on the hardwood, Megan's angry footsteps, my mother's quiet sniffling. At one point, Megan slammed the bathroom door so hard the mirror rattled. I sat at the kitchen table and watched the front yard fill up with boxes and plastic bins. The neighbors kept watching. I saw Mrs. Chen shaking her head and pointing at Megan. "Mr. Foster came back once, asked if I needed a locksmith. I told him no. By late afternoon, the house was almost empty. Megan threw one last tantrum in the hallway, screaming about lawyers and revenge. She grabbed the last box and stormed out. My mother lingered in the entryway. She stared at the broken vase for a long time, then at me. "We'll talk when you're ready," she said. I didn't answer. She closed the door behind her. I waited until the truck pulled away before I picked up the pieces of the vase. There was a message on the answering machine from my uncle, voice tight with anger. Another from my aunt, demanding an explanation. I deleted them both. The house was silent, except for the sound of my own breathing. The envelope was a plain manila one. It arrived with the regular mail, mixed in with a grocery flyer and a bank statement. I opened it at the kitchen counter, standing in the same spot where Megan used to drop her keys and shoes. Inside, there was a typed letter on firm paper. It was from Mr. Dorsey, the lawyer Megan had mentioned. He'd always signed his emails with a little flourish. Now, his tone was clipped and formal. The letter said he was terminating his representation of Megan and Adam, effective immediately. It cited potential fraud regarding submitted documents. I read that line twice. There was no apology, no softening. He stated he could not represent clients who might have compromised the integrity of contractual agreements, then referenced my name directly. I could picture Megan's face, reading the same words. I let that image settle. Behind the letter was a copy of the so-called roommate agreement. I recognized my name, but not my handwriting. The signature was a blunt forgery. Someone had tried to mimic the way I looped the G in my last name, but it was too wide, and the tail curled the wrong direction. I felt nothing at first, just a kind of blankness. There was a sticky note on the top right corner. In blue ink, it said, "Your signature is obviously fake." That was it. No comfort, no outrage. Just a simple statement of fact. The word "obviously" hit harder than anything else. I turned the page over. There was nothing else. No request for a meeting, no hint of future legal action. I let the paper sit on the counter. The kitchen was silent, except for the fridge humming. Megan and Adam had tried to use this lawyer to force me out, to make their story official. Instead, he had dropped them. They managed to brand themselves as untrustworthy to the only professional who might have helped. I texted no one. I didn't call my mother. I didn't even tell my coworker, who had been following the story in the break room. I stood there and let the silence stretch. I thought about Megan, how she'd always boasted about doing things by the book. She used to joke about how careful she was with contracts, how people underestimated her because she looked young. Now, a sticky note with 7 words had cut through all of that. I put the envelope in the drawer with the rest of the paperwork. I didn't shred it. I didn't hide it. I just let it sit there, obvious and unremarkable, the way some truths are. That night, I slept with the window open. The apartment felt empty, but not in the old way. The quiet was heavier, but it was mine. I woke up before my alarm. The penthouse felt empty, airless, but I could move without thinking where Megan was or whether my parents would drop by unannounced. I made myself coffee in the dark, listening to the old machine hiss. I didn't bother with the lights. The city was blue and gray outside, all quiet, headlights moving on the streets below. First thing, I called the building manager. I told him to cancel Megan's fob, and both my parents as well. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Understood, I'll take care of it immediately." I asked him to email me the new list of authorized names. Just mine, nobody else. He said he'd send it by the end of the hour. There were no questions, no apology for not noticing before, nothing but the same blank professional voice. After I hung up, I changed the locks myself. I'd watched enough YouTube videos to know which screws to take out, how to fit the new deadbolt. My hands didn't shake. I worked in silence, the sound of metal sliding into place. When I finished, I dropped the old keys in a plastic bag for the building to collect. I left them on the counter and sent an email to management. "These are invalid now. Please dispose." I went through my phone next. I deleted every text thread with Megan, every old photo, every voice message she'd left in the last month. I unfollowed my parents on social media. I took myself off the family group chat. The notifications stopped. My phone was silent except for one work email, a meeting reminder for tomorrow. I marked it as read. I walked the apartment. The coat Megan always left on the back of the chair was gone. She'd taken her things last night, fast, after I told her it was over and handed her the envelope with her share of the buyout. She didn't argue or cry. She just took the money and her suitcase and left. My parents hadn't called since the lawyer meeting. Nothing from either of them, not even a forwarded article or a passive-aggressive comment about the weather. I sat on the couch with my coffee and turned on the news. The volume was low. I watched without hearing a word. The city looked the same as always, but I saw it now through clear glass, no fingerprints, no smudges. The quiet wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be relief, or maybe guilt. Instead, it was like the air had thickened. Nothing moved unless I made it move. I checked the deed again, the scanned PDF on my laptop. My name, no one else's. The lawyer had sent it last night, subject line final, Unit 31G. No more co-owners, no backdoor agreements, no family trust. Just me, and a monthly payment I could handle. I didn't forward the file or print it. I just kept it open, reading my name over and over. I heard footsteps in the hallway, someone walking past. They didn't stop. No one knocked. I wondered if Megan would try, if my mother would show up with a key and demand to be let in. I was ready to call building security if it happened. I kept my phone next to me, just in case. It didn't happen. The day went on. My coffee got cold. I made another cup, this time with milk and cinnamon, the way I used to like it before Megan moved in. I sat by the window and watched the city change colors. Nobody called. Nobody texted. The silence wasn't heavy or light. It was just there, filling the rooms, settling into the corners. I thought about calling someone, an old friend maybe. I just let the day pass. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the rain starting on the windows. For the first time in months, No one else had a key. No one else could come in. I signed the letter with a pen that didn't belong to me. My lawyer watched me do it. The no-contact order went out the next day. It was short, almost boring. Legal language, a few lines about property, a warning not to approach or attempt contact. Megan's name, my parents' names. No room for argument. The property records stayed exactly as they were. I checked online, twice a week at first, then less. My name sat quietly where it always had. No transfers, no claims, nothing contested. I didn't answer the phone when my mother called. I let the voicemails pile up. Most were short. Some were long enough that I skipped through them in pieces. The tone always changed halfway through. Polite, then pleading, then angry, then flat. Megan moved back in with my parents within a week. I heard it from a neighbor, not from them. Her car was in their driveway. She was seen at the grocery store with my father. The first time I passed her by accident, in the frozen aisle, she looked at me but didn't say anything. I didn't look back. I changed the locks. I moved furniture. I threw out every mug that didn't feel right in my hand. The house was quiet in a different way now, not expectant, not tense. It was just mine. I started sleeping through the night. I stopped leaving lights on in the hall. I didn't check the peephole every time the doorbell rang. There were days when I thought I would answer the phone, just to see what would happen. The silence felt practical. I made coffee in the mornings and watched the sun come up over the street. That was enough. 3 months have gone by. Most days I wake up before my alarm. The apartment feels colder without his things, but I don't mind the emptiness. I walk barefoot to the kitchen, make coffee, look out over the city, and it's just quiet. The only sound is the hum of the fridge, and sometimes traffic far below. Last weekend, Megan posted a group photo. My mother, my brother, even my father with his stiff smile, all squeezed around her new kitchen island. Megan stood in the middle, a glass of wine in her hand, her head tilted toward my mother. The caption was something about family, finally together. Their faces looked tired. My brother had his phone in one hand, not looking at the camera. My father's arm hung at his side. I didn't like or comment. I scrolled past. I didn't feel much at all. The penthouse is still in my name. I changed the locks, hired a cleaning service, and packed up what I wanted to keep. The rest I donated or left for the building to clear. I keep a folder in my safe. It has the documents, the emails, the bank statements, everything I used to stop the transfer. Sometimes I look at it before bed, not out of anger, just to remind myself that I was right to do it. No one from my family has tried to contact me since. Megan sent a text the day she moved in, a single line. "I hope you're happy." I didn't reply. I deleted her number and blocked her on everything. It's easier than I thought it would be. Most evenings I read or walk around the block. I don't go out much. The quiet is different now. It's not loneliness. It's more like breathing room. If your own family tried to take something you built with your own hands, would you fight back or let them have it to avoid drama? I spent years thinking loyalty would protect me, and I'm still not sure if the silence was worth it or if I should have gone public sooner. Did I cross a line by exposing them, or was it the only way to get free? I wonder how many people have seen the same thing happen in their families. The quiet power shifts, the unspoken threats, the way people act when money gets involved. Tell me if you think I went too far or not far enough. I'd like to know if you've ever had to pick between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself, and how you handled it. If you want to hear more stories about loyalty and betrayal, subscribing and liking helps me keep sharing them. Maybe someone you know is going through something similar and needs to know they're not alone. What would you have done if you were in my place?